What's happening, folks? Geologist Philip Prince looking out over the California coast at Portuguese Bend, Rancho Palos Verdes area. This is a little bit west, southwest of LA. Did a video about this area several months ago. Had a good viewer question about this area of land right here. That is new land. The seabed has literally risen up locally in that one little spot, and it's now poking up out of the ocean. You can go out, walk around on it. Couldn't do that a year, 2 years ago, whatever. You can actually see these changes on Google Earth. Go up there and turn the clock back a little bit. No land, plenty of land. When I make that change, if you watch the top of the screen there, it looks like the land is moving. That's because it is. This is the Rancho Palos Verdes landslide. Absolutely enormous slope movement, one that's been going on for decades. Cut a video about it just because it is so huge. There are, of course, other things like this in the Earth system, but this one really stands out. There's so many people living on top of it. You got houses, neighborhoods, whatever you like up there that are quite literally on top of this thing and just sort of along for the ride there. If you live along the edges of it, however, you've got real problems because in that case, your house could get torn in half, utility lines to your property could be cut, the roads are always going to be in a mess. Really, sort of a major, about as major as they come, slope movement event in terms of people interacting with it day to day and just having their whole daily lives sort of upended by what's going on with this thing. So the viewer question was, how does a landslide make the ocean floor rise up? Typically, if you're talking about uplift of the land surface happening really fast, you might have some kind of like fault movement thing. If it's over a large area, it might actually be related to volcanic processes. Not the case here. Don't need to worry about that. This is absolutely landslide related, but relating a landslide to uplift of the ocean bottom is kind of, I don't know. That's not an everyday connection. Fortunately, you can draw this one out in paint very, very nicely. And it's actually one of the more fundamental relationships or processes and geometries that you see in the study of geology worldwide. So we will set ourselves up here with a little sketched out coastline. It'll be my kind of cliff at the edge of it here, going way up the slope there, kind of at the top of the mountain. And I'm going to color layers in here. We'll try to make this thing pretty illustrative and understandable. Again, because it's not an everyday thing that you see moving land actually causing offshore areas. It isn't far offshore, but it's absolutely not on land where the uplift is occurring. You see a slope movement doing something like that. So drawn in here, sedimentary layering down under the slope. In this particular case, the rock layering tilts down like that out toward the ocean. We might as well go ahead and get our ocean drawn in here so we can see that. If rock layering tilts down slope in geology, we refer to that as a dip slope. Dip refers to the direction and steepness of layer tilting. Dip slopes make really good landslides. Imagine a big stack of books. Now imagine they're heavy like rocks, get water in between those surfaces, groundwater, water soaking in. You can sort of put two and two together. Dip slopes are really classic major landslide producers. This one is no exception, particularly because it's got some real slippery layers down there under the surface that really make the sliding go wild. So there's our ocean, got our brown land surface there. And at this point, probably need to fill in some geology down there. It's a good one there. All kinds of colors here. Sometimes it's hard to pick colors because you end up like emphasizing the wrong stuff. You sort of lose the attraction or attention on what you're trying to show. Those should be mellow enough, but they look different enough that we can figure out kind of where we are in the diagram. So here's be kind of my steep, almost like a bluff or a cliff down there at the coastline. And we'll need to throw in here a little bit of of surface kind of damage, as we'll call it, due to the slide movement. So I'm going to have some areas here that have kind of dropped down and sunk a little bit, actually due to the movement of the landslide, and we'll draw in a few more cracks and things as well. Okay, so the landslide is kind of breaking away like that, and then the sliding surface actually runs, like you see here, basically parallel to the geology. They say that there are a couple different levels of sliding surface, but they are absolutely controlled by this layering here, and again, some of those weak layers down in the surface, right? So if you're having this overall movement like that, so it can pull away at the top there, no problem. For it to be allowed to move, if it's moving at the top, it's got to be moving down at the bottom as well. And that actually is how we sort of answer this overall question. Down here, a little bit offshore, down under the shallow ocean and down under the ground, have a geologic structure that we call a ramp. And you see ramps in geology with plate tectonics, actually with mountain ranges, where miles thick sequences of rock end up being pushed up ramps and stacked on top of each other to build up mountain ranges. This is like a really, really small version of that, but movement's going like that, and then it's being directed up along that ramp to produce, in this particular case, an actual upward movement of rock material. And as long as there's enough force pushing down here from the top, and this bottom part is slippery enough, absolutely the weight of that slide is sufficient to push the toe of the slide up and out that ramp. Right now, if there's too much friction on the bottom of the slide, if there's not enough what we call driving load related to the weight of the rock, you're not going to see this happen, and you're not going to have movement at all in the slide. But in this case, oh yeah, we got plenty low friction, and we got plenty of driving load there. Let's tidy up the slide here just a little bit, add a little bit more detail on it. It's got all these kind of cracks and fractures and things that are actually allowing the material to slide. And as you sort of stretch everything apart here, you end up with these big steps in the landscape where the downslope side is dropping down as it pulls away. We call these scarps. And in addition to the scarps, you can have just tension cracks here where the land is just sort of like stretching and opening and pulling apart. There isn't this overall downward movement of it, right? So there's our kind of our baseline landslide here. So let's move this thing. Well, if we move it forward, and we'll put this in the editor and kind of get it animated here. If we push up that ramp, we can actually drive that gray layer up and out of the water. It's basically the equivalent of what you would call a thrust fault in geology. In this case, again, it's just driven by the weight of the landslide. Same concept. Got that exaggerated there pretty good. It's not going to be that big if you actually look at it, but this is just going to make it very obvious to see. Let's kind of fill in our colors there. So, hey, we've just uplifted a bunch of rock, and our power source for that, if you want to call it that, is just the weight of the landslide pushing down the slope on that really slippery surface. So now that we've pushed that up our ramp there, right on, man. We got new coastline. And in fact, we gotta kind of move everything down toward the ocean here. So we're going to have very noticeable overall movement here in every place, but on this little headland point. Those don't seem to be moving for whatever reason. That would suggest that there's some local differences in where the sliding layer is or whatever. But when you look at the motion on Google Earth, for example, you actually see what looks like the slide mass almost kind of bunching up and like piling up around those things. But in this case, for this to look like we need it to look here, man, we're gonna move our cliff way on down here. So it'll look really nice. Now the hard part in sketching this out is going to be drawing the uphill portion of the slide. We'll see if we can get that figured out. All right, so it looks like that's going to be more than enough, more than enough movement there to look pretty good. Use the filler tool here, but I might as well just color her in. Trying to stay in the lines. Very nice. So there's your new cliff position. And here, man, the slide's going to be all kinds of like bunched up on top of that headland point there. Okay, so that's your new setup there, and there's new land that you can walk around on. How are we going to portray this movement? Ooh, gonna be tough. I don't know. Let's see. We're going to move everything down like that. I don't want that to go up at all. There we go. We'll do something like that. So we have everything sort of like kind of like dropping down there. That part has just sort of shifted horizontally, and we put some new sliding surfaces in there. And we'll be sure to like drop that down pretty good so that we definitely know something has happened there. Okay, so we had all kinds of stuff happen in this particular case right here. Cool. So when we try to animate that, that should look like that moved. I don't know. We'll move the one just atop, just above it here, just a little bit as well. May not take it all the way up to the very top here, but we're gonna have that drop down a little bit further. We'll just redraw most of this one right here. Okay. Oops. So that whole thing there is just going to be kind of more stretched and messed up looking. That should give us the effect that we need. Okay, so let's drop that scarp down there a little bit more. It should probably look pretty good. Yeah, we'll leave it to those lower ones. If we wanted to move we wanted to move the top one as well, oh, that would be bad. We'd have to come and readjust everything. I don't know. I guess I could like select all of it and drag it or something. This is going to work for now. And again, that downward movement from the top is translated into pushing everything up and out of the water on that ramp there. Interestingly, if you let that what we call the toe, if we let that push up more and more, it actually becomes like it's like a counterweight almost. So the weight of it pushes back against the slide's driving force from further up the slope, depending on which part of the slide is actually active at any given time, right? So if you have that amount of driving force and say you've got a little more friction here on the bottom, and then you've got this toe's weight kind of pushing down, holding it back. If you let that toe grow up there, that will actually slow the slide. And in fact, the slide naturally would want to move until it reached sort of an equilibrium, until the toe pushed up enough to resist the movement. Interestingly here, because the toe of the slide is subjected to the Pacific Ocean, what's going to happen to it? Well, it's going to be massively under attack by big waves coming in off the Pacific there. So this thing is going to start eroding away as it already has. How long will it last? Who knows? Really tough to say. I think you can look at other places around the coast here, some landslides to the south near La Jolla that have like pushed up toes on the beach. They tend to look, eroded away for some time. You can see their traces, but the actual uplifted part tends to go away pretty fast. This is pretty weak rock. It's pretty soft rock that's been pushed up. And I mean, it's part of the coastline that gets hammered pretty good. I don't know if trying to preserve that toe or even trying to like load more material onto it to produce that counterweight effect. I don't know if that has anything or has any involvement, I guess you'd say, in trying to slow the slide down. Most of what they're trying to do here to control this thing relates to the fact that there's tons of water getting down into it through all of these fissures and scarps. They get down there in the sliding surface, keep everything well lubricated, and the idea is to like drill down in there as much as possible and pump that water back out to the top. So that is probably the dominant, I guess, geotechnical solution to this thing to try to slow it down. But yeah, absolutely. If you could keep a big toe on it, that would be a stabilizing effect. But unfortunately, in this case, over time, that's going to get chopped back chopped back down to sea level there. And you're basically going to be back into a position that looks a lot like where we started out here. And that's just kind of the cycle here of a landslide like this that has a toe on some kind of eroding, erosive waterway. You see this on rivers quite a lot. A landslide will push down out into a river. The river will wash away the toe of the slide. It'll slide a little bit more. The river washes away the toe. It's just kind of an ongoing process. But at the end of the day, the whole idea of the uplift centers around this ramp and the slide's attempt to progress towards greater stability by pushing that stuff up that unfortunately the ocean is not going to let it have here. Um, Really, just absolutely amazing to look at. I can't think of any other places offhand on Google Earth where you can go and flip imagery like that and literally see like a mile wide and sort of thousands of feet from top to bottom mass of Earth move like that, and you're actually watching it move over a really short period of time. I don't know. If you know another one from a landslide like this elsewhere, holler at me because I'd like to check it out. Talking about those neighborhoods, I talked about this in the other video I did. This is a Dauntless Drive and Exultant Drive. Monster crack tearing the road apart right there. You can take this one back in time. Everything looked pretty normal. That's 2017. I think 2016 has some good, yeah. 2016 has pretty good imagery. Looks like they got a little bit of a patch there. This thing's been moving again for decades. I mean, this isn't a new thing, but there's been a tremendous amount of activity in this part of the slide. And if we flip that back to today, got a really, really big difference there. I think what you're seeing with that black stuff there, like a plastic liner, basically a way of preventing water infiltration there. We look just a little bit ahead right here. You can see a stream channel coming down. They've got a liner in that now as well. Just trying to keep the water out of the system. Probably worth slowly zooming out here. Just take a look at this whole thing before we sign off. Talking about the ability to see that movement, like the whole side of the mountain. Absolutely crazy. If you live around here, this thing's just a part of your life, and there's a lot of geotechnical work done on it. I don't know. It's pretty big. It's pretty big. I think you're probably looking at the potential for so much impact just from weather patterns, things like this toe erosion, just the physical size of the slide is going to be a tough one. Going to be a tough one to handle. Uh, Hopefully, though, this answered Jason's question about the uplift down there. Sometimes you see like big retaining walls do this. Sometimes if you build a retaining wall on the site, fill a bunch of material behind it, the weight of that filled material will do a similar thing, and the wall won't fall down. The ground under it will like heave up and out like you see here. There have been building collapses, sort of some famous grain elevator collapses are essentially a comparable type of process where load driven by gravity basically breaks the layering and produces these ramps that push the material up and out. So Pretty crazy thing to think about. Hope you found this video interesting. Hope you check out the next one when it comes along.